GMT, and I am in West Yorkshire. Today, this podcast is going to be a little bit of a walk down memory lane because I'm just in that space right now at this moment. I'm 61 years of age, and over 30 years ago, I was in my late 20s. A coworker and I was born and raised in Chicago. A coworker and a friend, the two of us, we were going to go to London. And as it turns out, British Airways had this package deal, two capital cities. One of them had to be London. Two capital cities at this very, very cheap price. So what you did was you spent 3 nights in London and 3 nights in one of the capital cities. The choices you had were Amsterdam, Paris, and Rome. There might have been another city, but those are the 3. We picked Amsterdam because it was the cheapest. So there wasn't no one was booking online then, and what you did was you called and you booked the ticket, and we did, and they held the ticket for so many. They said they would hold the ticket for us. Well, anyway, my friend, her boyfriend felt 2 women shouldn't travel alone to Europe. Also, I have to add, she's African American, as am I, and he's African American, and he felt black people shouldn't go to Europe. So that's truthfully what happened. So she canceled her ticket, and I talked to British Airways and said, well, I can't go by myself. I was afraid. And the customer service person with British Airways, she said, no, you have to go to London, you have to go to Amsterdam. She said, as you know, London is an English-speaking country, and she said, your country is an English-speaking country. Well, kinda, and I laughed about that. And then she said, Amsterdam, most people in the capital speak English, you'll be perfectly fine. And everything was, you were very coddled on this trip. It was all these shuttles from the airport to the hotel, back again, and there were all these arranged tours and prepaid things. And even going by myself, it was very cheap. So I went. I remember one of the parts of the package was on the double-decker bus. We went around, we looked at the city, and we went past 2 places, the London School of Economics and Parliament. And I literally, I don't know, I was emotional, screaming, and oh my God, that's Parliament. Oh my God, that's the London School of Economics. And so one of the tour guides, I was young as well, a man, I said, can I go by myself? Do I need to make an appointment? He said, no, you can go to both of them. He said, go to the university, LSE, and walk around. They'll let you walk around some places. And then he said, Parliament, he said, Westminster, you can go there. You can also do some walking around. So I did. And I never stopped. Over the next few decades, I started going back and forth to London 3 to 4 times a year. Eventually, I started, as opposed to doing these short trips, I started doing extended trips. Initially, I tested out living in London, quote unquote, for 2 weeks, and then I stayed for a quarter, 3 months. When I stayed for the long periods of time, I would do volunteer work with feminist organizations, and I got a chance to know the city, the people, the various communities, and to actually commute back and forth to a volunteer job. I also felt as if I was contributing. I know when you're a tourist, you're giving money, you're putting money into the economy, but I was raised, and it is my belief system, you have to do something. And after you do the sites, and I was making friends in London, and they were very important to me. Friends in England, they were very important to me, but I connect with the place by working. And so I was on a tourist visa, so I thought the answer was I would pick up volunteer work. I can't even count the volunteer jobs I've had over the years in London, England. Initially, my volunteer work was constructed as what people might think of as quote-unquote traditional feminism, but I'm in a space now, and have been so for a while, questioning what is traditional feminism. In any case, over the years, some things happened in my life. I moved to Dundalk in Ireland, the Republic, and I got engaged to someone, and it was at the tail end of the 90s, and when I moved to Dundalk, as it turns out, the community I lived in was a Republican community, as in IRA, and the IRA were in the process of standing down. So I got to see a paramilitary group disband and stand down, and that was messy, complex, and traumatizing, but it definitely left me with significant and pertinent learned lessons. I returned to the U.S., and as soon as possible I returned to the U.K., and now in my lived experiences I was a survivor of the Troubles. I left Dundalk in the summer of 1998. 9/11 happened in 2001. Then next was the invasion of Iraq, and the invasion of Iraq had a pivotal impact on the security of, my focus was London, England, and the security deteriorated. There was extremism coming, the people they now refer to as Islamicists, and my feminism shifted to include the analysis of how the state constructed threat and who was a threat, and how the state constructed who was worthy of keeping us safe. And I started looking, and with a myriad of feminists who I was literally invited into this activism. Anybody could do it, but I didn't know it existed. The analysis of the state's national security model, and questioning it and how it was being administered, and who was in the loop, who was in the circle. Because of that, I ended up having exposure to special branch because they wanted to know what I was doing. So going to meetings and trying to understand how civil society was responding to national security model, the model, and also how civil society was understanding and responding, experiencing and responding to the increasing extremism in London, England. And again, that was my scope, London, England. There came a time that I met MI5. That's something that happens here. This is a country with a very complex extremism problem. If you start moving around a lot, somebody's going to ask you what you're doing. That's the nature of the beast here. I'm going to give you an abbreviated history, but in time I ended up traveling to Israel, and where I got to talk about my activism and to learn about activism, Israeli activists, Jewish and Arab, and how women feminists organized themselves and responded to their feminism and their activism in this space of a protracted conflict. It's fascinating. Before that, I went to Canada, and I got to see a country that, in comparison to the UK and Israel, was completely calm and at peace, except for indigenous persons, First Nations people. And I got a chance to learn activism from a myriad of perspectives in Canada. I'm now in the UK and doing research here, looking at academic programs here. I did a bit of schooling, postgraduate work in Canada. And all of my work in recent years post-Dundalk has been towards trying to understand how the state constructs security in times of conflict or / extremism, pick your word of choice, and looking at it from a bottom-up perspective as a feminist, as a black woman, as a Muslim, who's also a practicing Catholic, and has a lot of labels. I can't say that I've ever been bored. I've been tired, I've been exhausted. It can be draining, it can be emotional, But for me, it's we all pay a price for our humanity and our place in space, and that you do that, you conceptualize that, however, doing good work, being a good parent, doing a good job, your job, being kind to people, however. So for me, it's volunteer work and my academic research. None of this would have happened if I had not had the parents I did. May they rest in peace. My father, both my parents were very intellectual people. My father was a Francophile. He was confused and I think a tad bit disappointed that I'm Anglophile. But both my parents, their intellectualism encouraged me to always embrace the world from a position of asking and seeking to understand. I think the pivotal life experience I had was definitely Dundalk, and meeting men and women who were in the IRA and who were in the process of changing their way of seeking their goal of a united Ireland. I think, well, that I believe to be in the IRA. No one ever identified themselves as being in the IRA. That I think also the bit about being in Dundalk was that the people were war weary. It was exhausted. I never glamorized any kind of conflict, but you certainly wouldn't glamorize it with these people. They were tired and they were done. And they wanted a different life for their children, and they wanted a different way forward, and they thought there was a different way forward. And I got to see some of the complexities of what that looked like and lived life in real life. I think it made me a better activist while I was living in Dundalk. Again, I was engaged to someone. On Saturdays, I went to Dublin because I had a volunteer job there. And I always have to do volunteer work with a feminist organization. So I think seeing those life experiences and having those life experiences, and because I had the parents I did, for me, what was so pertinent and pivotal about Dundalk is that after Dundalk, so I ended up on a list here in the UK, known associates. So I'm aware that I was under surveillance for a while. I don't know if it was special branch or MI5. I don't know which one, but I know at the airport I started to be questioned by special branch. It was always in public at the desk. They sit at the immigration desk. So it was about why I was going to these different organizations, and what I was doing was I was trying to understand. Trying to understand the pieces, right? But for me, special branch started asking me questions about my research. I was more than happy to share it. They were polite and respectful, overwhelmingly. They were always respectful, but sometimes we butted heads, but they were always respectful. In any case, for me, what was, dare I say, enriching and growth producing is because I got to see two sides of the equation. So I lived in a community that was a Republican community, and now I chose to do work openly and transparently about my research with special branch, and to conceptualize those two pieces and to stand in front of special branch, not in agreement with some of the security models that are public knowledge, that we know who they are, and challenging them about it through my writing and my analysis, and what that space felt like. And what that space felt like is there was a space of personal growth and intellectual growth, and to always remember that I have these two transformative experiences that are connected, that I lived in a Republican community in Dundalk, and I was now choosing, after approached, to share my research, fully transparent, public knowledge to everyone that came near me, with Special Branch. Yeah, it's, I'm leaving out lots and lots of pieces, but I can't say enough about the joy, the passion, the learning, the growth, the potential to contribute, the ability to have life and lived experiences encourage you to nuance and understand. I've always been an analytical person. I am on Twitter and via email every once in a while. I'll reach out to people from Sinn Féin because of my research I'm doing, and although their political party, there are activists connected to their party, and I don't want that ever to be Sinn Féin or Special Branch, because we are all in this together and we're all connected. And again, when I moved to Dundalk, because I was engaged, the IRA was in the process of standing down. So that's the IRA I saw. And I consider London particularly a place of home and solitude, and I want to see everyone everywhere safe, but my interest is also selfish, because at one point I knew London was going to be my home, and I was very keen as my activism was changing, in part because of Dundalk, to a more security focused. I don't want the learned lessons that I saw from war-weary fighters standing down to ever leave me. I don't want the short periods of times, burst of time that I spent with Special Branch, always in public. I don't know why they did that, but always in public. I don't want to ever forget, and I don't want to ever not appreciate the analytical skills I saw them bring to the table, because that's not what I thought about Special Branch, but I learned differently. I didn't know the community I was moving into. I began to put pieces together, but certainly the stereotypes I had about the IRA, and again, no one ever said they weren't. That's not what I saw. I saw war-weary people who were ready to make peace. So I know this is a bit of a ramble, but I'm in that kind of space today, really early in the morning. And in closing for this particular podcast, I'm glad the British Airways customer service person, it was a woman over 30 years ago, encouraged me to travel solo to London and then Amsterdam. Of course, you couldn't have ever imagined all of this would have happened, but it did. So, this is DebraVWilson. I'm in West Yorkshire. It is after 3 o'clock in the morning, GMT. Thank you.